All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and honestly, completely reframe everything you thought you knew about ADD and ADHD. For decades, we've all heard the myths, the stereotypes, the casual jokes about having a short attention span, but the reality hidden inside the source material we're exploring today, it paints a radically different and frankly, a far more urgent picture. We are going to look at the genuine neurological realities of this condition, the massive, literally lifelong risks of leaving it untreated, and most importantly, the highly effective, holistic solutions that can absolutely rewrite a person's life trajectory.
We've got to start right here by totally shattering a huge myth. This is not just bad behavior or a lack of discipline or, poor parenting. It is actually a genetically inherited physical brain disorder. When we look at the brain imaging studies, we see that ADD is fundamentally a developmental disorder of the brain. More specifically, it's a deficiency of the neurotransmitter dopamine, right in the prefrontal cortex. So it's not some behavioral nuisance. It's a very real biological reality. The brains of those with ADD literally function differently when they try to concentrate.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The hidden ADD reality. 2. The cost of doing nothing. 3. The 4 circles approach. And 4. Healing the ADD brain. Let's kick things off with Section 1. The hidden ADD reality, way beyond the stereotypes. Now, the core characteristics are things you've probably heard of, right? Distractibility, chronic disorganization, procrastination, and really poor internal supervision. But here is the fascinating paradox about all this. That hallmark short attention span, it actually applies specifically to routine, mundane tasks. And this is a massive stumbling block for getting a proper diagnosis. People with ADD can still fiercely focus on highly stimulating, new, or even frightening activities. Think about a fast-paced video game or an intense argument. Why? Because those high-stimulation events provide just enough intrinsic excitement to temporarily wake up that dopamine-deficient prefrontal cortex. So actually, scratch that idea that they can't pay attention to anything. They just can't pay attention to the boring, everyday tasks that unfortunately make up so much of life and school. And this brings us to a massive distinction, how this looks across genders. On one side, we've got classic, hyperactive ADD, which is frequently diagnosed in males. They're the kids bouncing off the walls, getting into trouble, constantly drawing attention. But on the flip side is inattentive ADD, which frequently occurs in females. These individuals aren't hyperactive at all. They're often quiet, spacey daydreamers. And because they aren't disruptive, they get severely overlooked and chronically demoralized by incredibly unfair labels like lazy, willful, or unmotivated. This ongoing demoralization even places them at a much greater risk for later complications like teenage pregnancy. It's an absolute tragedy of misdiagnosis that literally leaves millions suffering in silence. Moving on to Section 2, the cost of doing nothing and the lifelong toll it takes. When we ignore this in kids, the fallout is heartbreaking. Failing to treat this brain disorder leads to severe academic struggle and deep social isolation. And it all culminates in this devastating statistic, a 33% high school dropout rate for those with untreated ADD. Think about that for a second, especially compared to the national average of around 8%. That is a staggering loss of human potential, driven by an accumulation of failure experiences that basically convinces these bright kids they just aren't smart enough. And the stakes skyrocket when we look at untreated hyperactive boys. Because their underactive brains are constantly seeking stimulation and conflict just to wake up, they often turn to high-risk behaviors. They face a shocking 46% felony arrest rate by age 16. 46%! Compare that to just 11% for a control group without the disorder. It is a clear, direct pipeline from untreated neurobiology straight into the justice system. But it doesn't stop in childhood. As these kids become untreated adults, the interpersonal toll is equally massive. We see severe job instability, chronic underachievement, and a threefold increase in divorce rates. I mean, just imagine the constant strain of chronic lateness, disorganized finances, impulsivity, and emotional outbursts on a marriage. The turmoil is relentless when the brain's hardware is struggling like that. Plus, leaving the brain in this dopamine-deficient state sets off a whole chain reaction of risky behaviors and physical stress. Untreated individuals are way more likely to self-medicate with food, drugs, or alcohol, and this significantly heightens the risks for obesity, type 2 diabetes, and even early-onset Alzheimer's disease later down the line. We also see a much higher percentage of teenage pregnancies overall, because impulsivity completely overshadows the ability to think through consequences. We're talking about a whole-body, whole-life health crisis here. Okay, Section 3, the 4 circles approach, which is really a framework for hope. The absolute most crucial takeaway here, we have to intervene early. Ideally, treatment should start before age 9. Why 9, you ask? Because by that age, if a child is untreated, they've basically been in trouble almost every single day of their lives. They've totally internalized that negative feedback. We've got to step in early to stop that accumulation of failure experiences that permanently damages their self-esteem and sets them up for lifelong mood and anxiety disorders.
And how do we do that? Through what we call the comprehensive 4 circles approach. It's not just slapping a prescription on it and hoping for the best. We have to optimize the biological circle, the actual physical functioning of the brain and body. Then we address the psychological circle, correcting those negative self-defeating thought patterns. We tackle the social circle, improving their relationships and environments. And finally, the spiritual circle, helping the individual connect with a deep sense of meaning and purpose. People don't get sick in isolation, and they sure don't heal in isolation either.
Which leads us to our final section, Part 4, Healing the ADD Brain with Targeted Interventions. Starting with the biological circle, alternative medicine and lifestyle tweaks are actual game changers. Food is essentially a powerful drug you take every single day, right? One of the most potent tools we have is the elimination diet. This involves completely removing brain-irritating artificial dyes, sugar, gluten, and dairy for a period of time, because these foods can trigger massive inflammation in the gut and the brain, which just totally exacerbates poor focus, brain fog, and impulsivity.
Get this, the results of changing the diet are absolutely astounding. Studies highlighted in our sources show that for up to 85% of children, making these specific dietary eliminations resulted in a 50% or greater reduction in their ADD symptoms. Let that sink in for a moment. Just changing what's on a child's plate can literally cut their neurological symptoms in half, completely moving them out of the diagnostic criteria for ADD.
Beyond what's on the plate, there's neurofeedback. This involves using computerized exercises to actually train the brain to produce healthier brainwave patterns. And it's proven so incredibly effective at training the brain to focus that the American Academy of Pediatrics now recognizes neurofeedback as a Level 1 intervention, meaning they view it as being entirely on par with traditional stimulant medications for treating ADD, but without all the nasty side effects. We can also bring in targeted nutraceuticals, high-quality supplements, basically, to provide the exact metabolic support that a dopamine-deficient brain is craving. EPA-rich fish oil is fantastic for stabilizing mood. Zinc and magnesium provide essential metabolic support that gets heavily depleted in stressed, hyperactive bodies. And amino acids like L-tyrosine can naturally boost dopamine production, which improves focus and energy without the toxicity or dependency tied to improper medication. It's all about giving the brain the exact building blocks it's begging for. When you really step back and look at the sheer biological reality of all this, when you strip away the moral judgments, you start to see that withholding comprehensive treatment, well, it's basically a moral failing. As one of our sources perfectly puts it, not treating ADD is a lot like refusing to give glasses to a child with failing eyesight and then punishing them when they can't read the chalkboard. So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to chew on. If we have the holistic tools, from diet and supplements to neurofeedback and psychological support, to save someone from a lifetime of academic failure, legal trouble, and chronic medical struggles, isn't it time we start treating the actual brain rather than just punishing the behavior? Take that thought with you today. I really hope this explainer has completely transformed how you view the incredible, highly capable, but so often misunderstood ADD brain.